Hi everyone, it's Jay here, and today I'm going to review some of the manga and manhwa I read in September. I read 8 volumes, and this time none of them were omnibuses, so I can't pretend I read more than I did. But what I read was high quality, and I loved all these volumes. So in no particular order, let's begin. I read The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 1, and I went into this not really knowing what to expect, except that it may be a slightly cozy fantasy. I don't know whether I would call it cozy, but maybe it is. I felt like the stakes were low. I loved the exploration of their daily lives, and in that sense, yes, it was cozy. But there's this underlying sense of threat as well, and I think the art contributes to that. I've never read anything drawn in this style before, and I really like it. It's dark, sketchy and rough, but also sweet. The two characters are drawn quite differently to each other, with Shira being drawn as pure white with fairly clean lines, whilst Teacher is drawn as solid black and in parts quite scratchy. The story is set in a world where there are humans and non-humans, who are called outsiders. If you touch an outsider, you are cursed, and over time you turn into an outsider as well. So Shira cannot touch Teacher, and vice versa, which is heartbreaking sometimes. They live on their own, but there is a human placement kind of nearby, and they have a bit of a run-in. You get to see the fear humans have of the outsiders, and what this fear can lead them to do. I really recommend this series. It is perfect for October and reading around Halloween. It is atmospheric, the world building is intriguing, and so far I've absolutely loved it. But make sure you have volume 2 at hand, because I didn't, and the cliffhanger. I cannot wait to get my hands on volume 2. I also read volumes 1 and 2 of Ennead by Mojito, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. I went into this series pretty blind and not knowing what to expect, apart from the fact there would be Egyptian gods. But so far I am loving it. The volume itself feels very high quality, and the opening was not what I was expecting. It was beautiful in its portrayal of the gods. At first it does take a while to grasp the names of the gods, what they are gods of, and how they are related to one another, but luckily there's a family tree partway through book 1 to help people like me who struggle with these things. The expressions are well done, although some of the characters do wear these large masks over their faces, which means you can't see their expressions at times. But when you do, it is brilliant. For example, and this is not a spoiler, there's a moment where you cannot see Seth's eyes until he's slightly thrown by someone's words, and it is just such a powerful moment. I like the way the story is laid out. There's not exactly a lot going on the page, but the storytelling so far is exquisitely done. I had so many questions at the end of the first volume, as there are lots of plot lines being drawn up, which does bode well for the story as a whole. Volume 2 was just as good as the first one. There's a part where the past is layered and woven into the present, so you understand what is motivating Horace, and it is done just perfectly. I really like the art. It took me a while to get used to it, but each character is drawn really well. I do like the god Ra. She just seems to be sitting there and enjoying the mayhem around her. The way her face is drawn is so cool. Her eyes are beautifully done, and her mouth is actually very expressive. Isis's hair is so well done as well. The only thing I will say is that sometimes the lines seem pixelated almost. I'm not sure if it's because it's been enlarged or it's meant to be like that. Overall, I do recommend this series, but I would pay attention to the rating. The paperbacks and hardcovers have different ratings, so the paperback is age 15 plus and the hardback is rated mature. So far there is nothing in the story to get that rating, so I'm assuming the age rating kicks in later on in the series. So choose wisely, and if you're unsure, have a look at the warnings and decide for yourself. One thing I do love about the covers, I love how they match up alongside each other. I had a sneak peek ahead at future volumes and it was cool to see, but also I think it may give some of the plot away. I'm not sure, we'll have to see. Volume 3 is out now, and Volume 4 is out in November. I read the first volume of a light-hearted manga called Mobsters in Love. It's a BL and it's by Chiyoko Origami. It follows Akihiro Kashima, who's the right-hand man of the mob boss Sawatari, who he also has a massive crush on. I think the first few pages really sets the scene for this manga. There Akihiro is looking cool and suave, then boom, next page he's blushing away because of the boss. It is so funny, and he's quite delusional at times, dreaming up these fantasies where his boss hits on him. But Sawatari is a bit of a tease, to be fair. There are hints of a backstory between the two, which I look forward to finding out more of, and another character is introduced called Ritsu, who causes all sorts of issues and misunderstandings. I loved this volume so much. It was funny, cringe at times, and overall just a good time. I've already ordered volume 2, but volume 3 isn't being released until January 2025, so there's a bit of a wait. For all those who love short series, this one is for you because it is only 3 volumes long. Highly, highly recommend. Moving on to the last volumes I'm going to talk about today, The Abandoned Empress. I read 4 volumes last month, 5, 6, 7 and 8, and I am loving this series. I think this is my second favourite manhwa, after Villains Are Destined to Die and A Stepmother's Meisham. It follows Aristia, who lives her first life being told she was the child of a prophecy, and so she was meant to marry the crown prince, Revelis. But it all goes wrong when another girl is brought from our modern world to their world, and she is then the child of prophecy instead. Aristia's life is made worse by this, and after a series of events, she is killed. Showing this life is done extremely well. It takes up roughly half of the first volume, I think, and it is needed because it gives you a solid understanding of how she was feeling, how vile Revelis was, and it provides us with something to compare to when Aristia is brought back to life, but when she was 11 years old. She ages throughout the volumes, so in these later volumes she has her coming of age ceremony, so the pace is excellent but doesn't skimp on her relationship building with those around her. It becomes a lot more political now, with the royalist faction against the noblest faction. We get the trope of gossipy girls in high society trying to tear down Aristia, and I always love these kind of tropes. It's fun to see how the characters react to these things. Princesses are brought in from other countries to see if Revelis is going to pick someone else as the crown princess, and whilst there is one woman who is very unpleasant and out to get Aristia, I like that we got other characters, other princesses, who had their own stories and agendas. It wasn't all catty women fighting to be the crown princess. There is of course the big question of who Aristia will end up with. I know who I want her to end up with, but I have a feeling it's not going to work out like that. But it is interesting to know how she's interacted with others has changed the way people view her compared to the previous lifetime. And I think this is where the story works really, really well. It isn't a rehash of the previous lifetime, where the same people are evil and the same people are allies. Aristia takes what she knows and uses it to change her fate. And because of this, and her changed interactions with those around her, she forms new alliances, and some of those people also see her in a new light. The big oh my goodness moment in these volumes is that the girl who's transported from another world to this one in the original lifetime, well, she arrives now. And wow, I am so excited to see how all of this plays out. If you haven't picked this series up yet, you definitely should. Especially if you like the reborn character stories where they get a second chance to live. So those are all the volumes I read in September. It's not very many, but I genuinely couldn't have read more without ignoring my work-related tasks, which I cannot do, obviously. Let me know what you've read recently. Do you have any recommendations for me? Have you got any thoughts on these series? Let me know in the comments below. Happy reading, everyone. Bye!